We're back on college football addiction with Immaculate. Last episode, we talked about where we had been, and now we're going to talk a little bit about where we're going with the automatic qualifiers, the A4, the autonomous 4, the power 4, whatever name you want to kind of give to that. It's all the same thing here. And the CFP and the problem that we have right now, where things are going. Again, if you didn't catch the first episode, you may want to go back and watch that first, or I'll link it at the end of the video so you can catch it after this. But we hear and see so much about, playoff expansion, the automatic qualifiers, what will come in, what will happen. Everybody's talking about, well, anything change for 25? We don't know, but will 26 change? It seems almost assuredly the answer to that is yes. Where are we going right now besides crazy with all of this change?
Well, first things first, I think the best thing to kind of show people is that you have to keep this all in the right frame. People tend to focus in on just the CFP as if that's the whole, and it's not. That exists within the whole. The A4 situation, the governance situation, what we spoke about earlier, that's the big picture. So the CFP situation has to fit into that. And right now, when they want to have that fully empowered to deal with the situations that they weren't able to deal with previously, they are going to need votes. They're going to need Division I votes to basically hand them the power. And so what I think is most important to highlight for people is that the Big Ten and the SEC decided together in meeting that they wanted to approach and deal with change in the CFP for 2025. The important part about that is instead of just waiting to do it in 2026 when they could just, slam the gavel and decide on their own, they decided they wanted to do it for 2025, which means they have to negotiate. So as I've said, that was not a declaration. It was the start of a negotiation. And that's very important because when they're on that A4 board, A5 board, whatever it's going to be, they're not going to be there alone. They're going to have the Big 12 and the ACC at least with them. And so they're going to have to work with them. So they're not coming into this, kind of demanding. They're looking to negotiate because that's the bigger picture when they're going to have to work together on this board in the future.
Yeah. So not to belabor the point, but to just very much make sure that we emphasize that everyone is focused on the CFP and what is coming there. And the Big Ten and the SEC hold all the power there, or at least will in 26 and beyond, and for as long as the CFP exists. But that's not the only. That's maybe the more minor part. Now, it's what everybody focuses on because it's the more sexy part. And how can my team get in and what's going to happen with this many auto bids? That is much more everyone's focus. That's not really the issue, right? Like the issue, it is a issue, right? But the major issue is this A4 board. It's all of Division I, essentially, right? Or not all of Division I, but it is the A4 board. The ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the SEC working together with equal says, equal voices as to essentially the governance side, like you just said, what really happens in college athletics, what really happens from a big picture perspective. And the SEC and the Big Ten, like you just said, could absolutely say, this is what we're doing for the playoff.
2026, yep.
But they don't so much want to. They want buy-in because they don't want to get pushed back on some of the bigger stuff, the revenue sharing and everything else that's going to happen. They know that they have to have the ACC and Big 12 be good partners there too. So to again, not to belabor the point, but to really drive that home, everyone's focused on the Big Ten and the SEC having all this power in the playoff, which they do. Nobody's disputing that. But they want to have good partners going forward from that with the A4, with the Power 4 conferences.
Correct. And, if you follow the reporting of someone like Ross Dellinger, he's even said that they are looking to create postseason tournaments via the A4. So, are they going to create the replacement for CFP? Are they going to create the tournaments for each of the potential new subdivisions that are coming from that? Some of all the members of the CFP, they might be getting divided into different subdivisions. We're going to have to find all these things out. So we don't really even know just how powerful being in charge of the CFP is at this point. But we're going to find out this year. That's for sure. And, they need at least the G5 for D1 votes in order to get that empowerment. That's just my opinion on it. That's always been the case. I don't see any way for the NCAA to hand them control over D1 without everyone in D1 voting on it. So they really can't even just, pound the G5 because they need their votes for this very important empowerment.
Yeah. Where do you think, we can tie in the playoff here because that is certainly what people, it is the sexier topic. It's the more exciting
100.
topic right now with what's in the news and things like that. So we can spend a little bit of time on that. I mean, where and what are your thoughts about the CFP changes over the next couple of years that we'll see and get?
I think whatever they decide upon for 2025, because they need those votes for the A4 voting, they're going to actually have to encode, like, make that longer than just for 2025. Like, whatever they decide for 2025, that's going to be it going forward. And I think that's going to earn them a lot of favor for the bigger picture. So what I think is what you're seeing now coming from the Big Ten, the SEC, when I say it's the start of a negotiation, you don't go into a negotiation saying the thing that you want. You say beyond that. You sometimes it's called the big ask. So when you see them coming in saying we each want 4 AQs, okay, well, if you were going for just 2026, then that's what's going to be the case.
Yeah.
But they have said they want to do it for 2025, which means that's probably not going to be the case. So I've been pretty adamant about this. I know most other people are saying 4. I think that you're going to see them come down to 3, and that's what the SEC said originally that they were okay with. Stinky's made a big deal about pointing that out. So you'll probably see 3 AQs for the Big Ten, the SEC, 2 for the Big 12 and ACC, probably 2 for the G5, 4 at large, because I do think they're going to 16. They want to get rid of that bye. That's just it hurt, and there is no evidence that it helped anyone.
No.
They want the home games for their champs, and if you go to 14 and you got 2 byes, that means the Big Ten and the SEC champs are basically getting byes, and I think you want a home game, especially if it's against number 15 and 16, right? It's a big win. It's a pump you up win. So that's what I think is going to happen. We might end up seeing the Big 12 and ACC push back a little bit in that negotiation, saying champions, instead of being the top 5 for a bye, would be top 8 guaranteed home game. G5, I think, probably gets a choice of you get 2 AQs or you get 1 AQ with the home game. You take the 2 AQs. It's all about, especially for 2025, it's pay, and you want 2 schools getting in. So that's where I think it's going to be. I think the A4 will each have a guaranteed home game for their champs. You'll see 3-3, 2-2, 2-4, and that's the way it'll be going forward.
Yeah, and I think you think about that too. It would feel like a small win for the ACC and the Big 12 to only have one less AQ, but in all reality, it probably doesn't change the amount of teams from each conference at the end of
No.
the day anyway, right? Like I went back and looked at every college football year, and if you include Texas and Oklahoma, if you include the Pac-12 teams, now that's not a perfect exercise because would Washington have really made it that year in 23? Sure. But the year they made it and got stomped by Bama, like they probably wouldn't have made it through the Big Ten and been one of the top 4. So, but you think about that, you think, well, if you just look back at it, the SEC and the Big Ten always had 8 teams in the top 16, like always, right? So even if you do go down to the 3-3, it feels like a win. The ACC can say, hey, we're just 1 team short. Like we're only one. We got them to come down to 3. And you're selling that to your constituents, right? And saying, look what we got. We got more opportunity. When in reality, we kind of know that the Big Ten and the SEC are probably going to get the same number of teams in, but it makes everybody feel good, right? Like, hey, we still have the most over here, and it doesn't change the actual result too much.
That's where I think it's important to go to 16. Because I do think that by giving them 3 AQs and then there's 4 at larges, they're still probably each going to get 1 at large in.
And some years too.
And Notre Dame, when they're up, they're getting 1 of them. Mm-hmm. And so that becomes kind of a competition between the Big 12 and the ACC for that last spot. That becomes controversy. 4 at larges is a lot more controversy than just 1 at large. Yeah. And that's important for ESPN, right? This is where they make their money, right? It's having shows that lead up for the rankings, for the committees. You need to have some positions where national ranking matters. So, and they're going to want that, and they're paying the bill. they're going to have a say in this. Now I know, and one of their statements that they made was they think that everyone needs to have a point in this and a play in this, and that's important. And they mean that, but I think what they really mean with that is you need to have everyone like kind of having some skin in the game so that there's controversy, so that there's something to talk about. Otherwise, what is there to talk about? If
Right. Yeah.
so,
If you 14 it and go 4-4-4 from the Big 12 and ACC, and then a group of five and
Notre
we
Dame,
would suspect that Notre Dame is in the top 15 more years than they're not. Right.
correct.
I understand a fall off can happen, but that's it. The SEC decides they're four.
There's
The
nothing to
ACC
talk
decides
about.
they're two. There's nothing there.
You don't even need a ranking committee
You don't, because you're going to rank them based on, I mean, I guess for final
for
seeding,
the
but
G5. Who's the
maybe.
highest ranked G5 champ? But that's about it.
But at that point, like, it's really just like you're probably putting your four conference champions first. Those are your first four seeds, whether they deserve it or not, right? Unless they strip the seeding and they want to go with, but then, I mean, your seeding is going to be based on who finished where in conference, right? Your top four SEC teams, your top four Big Ten teams. Maybe you've got an ACC and Big 12 slotted in there somewhere. But yeah, you need it. You need to go to 16 for that reason. Otherwise, you get rid of the committee. I don't know why you would even have a committee at that point, right? You just go with the
They're
AP
just
poll.
ranking. It's just like, okay, here's the ones that the Big Ten's putting in. Here's the ones the SEC's putting in. Everyone's putting in, and now you're going to rank those. But
Right.
that's a much smaller version of what they have now.
For sure.
And
And theoretically, you're probably going one Big Ten, two SEC, three ACC, four Big 12, five SEC, six Big Ten, seven ACC, eight. Like you're just ranking them. You're just alternating them down. Maybe you bump your second AC qualifier, but behind your third Big Ten SEC. But like, I don't know, that you're just kind of alternating the picks at that point so that they don't create first round in conference matchups. Like that's probably the only thing you're actually ranking them based on is for the matchup.
whereas if you have four at larges, your SEC fans are going to be like, just look at the South Carolina, Alabama, Ole Miss situation of this past year. They're going to be like, we deserve all those. We need three of those at-large spots. And then everyone's going to look at them like, you're crazy. That's what ESPN wants. They want that
They want
people
you to tune in.
be
Yeah.
involved, right? They want people involved with this. Like, we look at it and go, everyone's crazy, but that's the point. People involved and part of it. And I think that's what they worry about, is that if it's so ordered, that you're going to have so much less involvement.
It's
And
why
so-
the NFL doesn't have a playoff announcement show, right? We know,
yeah.
it's so
You know.
obvious, right? They literally are announcing it during week 16 or 17, I guess now. They are literally announcing it during that. Like, hey, we know now that the Jags are well, not the Jags, sorry. We know now that the Commanders or the Bucks or this team, the Chiefs are playing here because they're locked into this spot. Like that's just what's going to happen. And so, yeah, imagine the NFL trying to put out a show where they release it. Like everybody on Twitter wouldn't already know, like based on 50 years of experience, what's happening. So,
Yep. So that's why I say, like, you're going to have a certain number of at-larges because the people who pay the bills for this whole thing are going to want it. Like, they're going to have some say in that. So,
man, I appreciate you for joining me. I appreciate you for doing this. We'll certainly do it again. If people liked this, if they're interested in it, you guys can leave comments. Again, I'll link Immaculate's Twitter down there. On the bottom, it's Immaculate View. You can see the name down there at the bottom of the screen. But I know I've said it there, but just give us a little closing thought. Just a lot of the stuff that you're interested in, a lot of the stuff you're posting about. And again, not necessarily where people can find you because I've kind of, beat that to death. But just kind of what they may find if they go search you out on X, Twitter, wherever.
yeah, on X is where I'm at with that. And I generally just post about this stuff. I usually am not a big social media guy. I don't really care for it that much, but I got pulled into there while doing shows and people said, hey, you got to be on X to kind of reach out. So that's where we talk about that. And for the most part, it's some views on what the media is doing to kind of give a view on that, an interpretation of that, saying, look at this, maybe not so much that, because large part they're mouthpieces for their sources. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I try to do there. And the same that, when I come on with shows with you and others is just to maybe try to clear some of the fog, some of the haze that you start to realize, I mean, this is a game and and they're not just really informing, but they're trying to affect things that are going on.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do on X. When I'm in conversation with you and others, is just hopefully provide some clarity. So if I love to just get in conversations there with folks too. So if anyone's on there and follows me, finds me, put your reaction. Don't have to agree. Definitely don't have to agree. But just, I prefer respectful conversations. And if that's the case, then I would love to kind of find new people on there who are interested in this and want to have their say.
Yeah. You're asking for a lot, asking for respectful conversations on Twitter X, but
so gotta ask.
but no, you've been a great follow. I am, you'll message me about something and be like, did you see this news drop? And I'll be like, can you link me? I haven't, you do stuff fast. You are you're a good.
I keep my follows very small so that way this stuff hits my feed very quickly. That's why I do that. People think I'm maybe being mean by not following them. That's not the case. It's just to keep my feed somewhat manageable because that site's become very crazy.
Yeah, no, but you're a really good follow, and I've enjoyed our interactions. I appreciate you a ton for the hour we spent doing this and the several hours we've talked off air and stuff like that. So yeah, go follow on Twitter X. Really, really good follow if you're into any of this realignment or A4 or CFP, just all of the news, all the business of college football. We didn't really go into the House settlement, which we could have spent another hour on, but I know you're deep into that too. So go follow there. Again, make sure you're subscribed here to College Football Addiction. We've got plenty more content coming and has happened. You can find all of that on our page. I'll put this all on a playlist. The playlist will be immaculate here on YouTube. You can go check it out. But I appreciate you, bud. Thanks for hanging out.
Absolutely, man. Glad to be here with you and look forward to doing a little bit more.